My hope is in you, God. I don't trust my emotions, God, 'cause they can wither from side to side. I don't trust my logic, God, 'cause it's tainted by the natural man. My hope is in you. 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 I find my hope in you. I find hope in you. I find hope in you. My hope is in you. My hope is in you. My hope is in you. Yeah, I find hope in you. I find hope in you. God, I find hope in you. I find hope in you.
Glover Memorial Mortuary, located at 3241 Houston Avenue in South Macon, serving you and those you love with a personal touch is their motto for service. Sympathy, understanding, compassion, patience, and discounts available to lighten your financial burden. Dr. Walter Glover and staff are here to serve you and your family with a personal touch. They specialize in pre-need arrangements and cremation services with discounts given to every family with or without adequate insurance. Glover Memorial Mortuary, serving Macon and Middle Georgia since 1993.
September 18th, mark your calendar because the First Lady of Gospel, Pastor Shirley Caesar, is coming to Macon.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the Rena Laster Show and Dorothy Norwood. Life, lessons, legacies, and legends. Let's go live into the studio.
Good afternoon, everyone, and blessings to you. I am just so ecstatic to be here and to be alive. So, y'all, today is just an awesome day. It's a good day to be alive. You hear people say all the time, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And that is exactly what I'm saying today. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? Because life is throwing a lot of curves to a lot of people. And we have to be able still to bounce back and to be able to fulfill the purpose that God has for us here on earth. We've got to be able to be resilient. We've got to be able to persevere and make sure that we accomplish the things that we've been called here for. But it's not always easy. It's not always easy, y'all. And I'll be the first one to tell you. I'm a retired therapist. I am someone who still does therapy and talk to people. I am an ordained minister, and so I am constantly talking to people. I am a chaplain at one of the local hospitals, a volunteer chaplain. And so I'm constantly seeing a lot of things that a lot of people are not necessarily privy to. And what does that mean? That means that even in the midst of, I have to keep my cup full so that I'm able to continue to bless others, continue to minister to others, continue to give a word of encouragement to others, because that's the gift. That is one of my spiritual gifts. One of my gifts is to be able to encourage other people, to be able to help people through a lot of difficult times. But what do we do when it's hard to do that? Because right now, I have found out that one of my friends has died. Um, he was sick, and I think he had COVID. I have another friend who has someone in the hospital who is dying from COVID. I have relatives who have COVID. Y'all, everywhere you look, there is a reason. If we let it, there is a reason for us to just want to climb into a hole or go get in the bed and never get up, cover our heads and say, what's the use? But I am here to tell you that God is still on the throne, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it seems like, and no matter how things seem to be going. It is not as bad as it could be. And that sounds so trite sometimes, because I always laugh and say that, people have all these little cute sayings and trite sayings. But in the midst of that, these things do work. The sayings do work, and the sayings are true. At the time, they may not seem true, but they are. God is still on the throne. God is still good. God still cares about us. God still can take whatever is going wrong in our lives, He can work it all together for our good. And why? Why do I believe this? Because the word of God says that it's true. And so I believe what the word of God says. It says that his what he has to say is yay and amen. And I just happen to believe that. And so I'm going to have a guest on today. I am a life coach, but I have a guest who is a certified life coach. And one of the things that we're going to do is talk about how to coach yourself, how to get into that place where you can persevere and you can bounce back and you can do the things that you need to do to carry on in your life. That doesn't seem easy all the time, but there's another thing. Jesus was one of the best life coaches there ever was. And he was sent here to show us how to live a victorious life. The word says that he came so that we could live and have life and have it more abundantly. And that abundance does not just apply to finances, which is what a lot of people think. No, does not apply to finances only. It applies to our relationships. It applies to our spiritual life. It applies to our health. It applies to our goals and our occupations, our relationships at home. It applies to a lot of areas, really every area of our life it applies to. He came that we would have life and have it more abundantly. Now, the thing about life is that life is going to teach us some lessons. Life is going to continue to teach us lessons every day, whether it be through a positive experience that we've had, whether it be through some tragedy, whether it be through grief, whatever it is, there is a lesson in it if we would just learn it. And so that is what I want to talk about today as well. If we would just take what it is that life is showing us if we would take what life is talking about with us, then we can bounce back and we can persevere. And so, our guest today is Aisha Dodd. She's a life coach, a love and authenticity life practitioner, and her passion in life is about inspiring others. And so, God knows we need some inspiration today. Struggles continue, family trauma, family drama, family problems, addictions, depression, abuse, suicide, you name it, grief, everything continues. And so we want to talk today about what do you do? What do you do when it seems that things are still going to continue to be thrown at you and you have got to have some strength to persevere? So, Aisha, are you there?
I am here. Hello.
Hi, and I want to say to the audience, y'all, Aisha is a trooper. She came through in the last minute for me. I love you for that. God has a way of orchestrating things, though. God has a way of making things work out, and He has a purpose
Absolutely.
and a plan. And so I think it was ordained that you would be here right now. And so I don't know if you heard.
I agree.
Yes. Did you hear the introductory remarks that I was talking about when I was saying all the struggles continue, problems continue, grief continues? Um, and I don't know if you were on when I was saying that I have a friend who died a couple of days ago. I have a friend who has someone in on the ventilator right now who's not doing well. I have a coworker who has a relative
Yes,
on the ventilator. It just looks like everywhere you look, things don't seem to be adding up to what we expect. But I know that in the midst of all of this, we have to persevere. We have to develop some skills that are going to help us to bounce back. We've got to have some skills to model in front of our children that help them to persevere in the midst of all of this. So, with that being said, do you have some suggestions or some nuggets for the listeners today in terms of how do we cope, how do we deal, what do we model in front of our children and our coworkers and those who are around us? How do we get through this?
I do. So once again, I want to thank you for giving me opportunity to speak with you today. Listen, I this is something that we've been going through.
Mhm. Can you walk to a location? You're fading out.
Oh,
You're fading
okay.
in and out.
There,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
there's a whole lot of stuff that's going that we're observing that is negative. That is, it's easy to lose hope.
Yes.
A lot of people have lost a lot of family members and friends and stuff in light of the pandemic and so on and so forth. But what I will say is this time truly lends itself for us to be able to hit the reset button. I like to tell people all the time that we really have a golden opportunity to do some things that we really should have been doing all along, but really define not only just what the new normal looks like, but really what it is that we're lacking personally on a personal note. And in my opinion, that's self-love. That's basic self-love and basic self-care. So what I say to this is when we start to focus on truly get back to the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people aren't doing that, but we get back to the fundamentals. We got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves to the level that we have the clarity that we need in the times that we're living in right now. It is, if we take a look at what's going on right now for face value, it feels hard, but really, truly, it's actually kind of forcing us to go in, which is something that we all should be doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say go in, I really, truly mean like it's time for us to really get to know who we are, because the strength that we need to pull from And these times that we're facing, it has to come from really just like a deeper knowing of who we are as individuals on a level beyond anything that we've really been challenged to figure out before. So we've got to start asking ourselves questions. We've got to start taking care of ourselves in a better light so that we have the clarity that we need to realize, as bad as things seem right now, and as bad as things feel right now, there are so many beautiful things still occurring on a day-to-day basis. And we're not always exposed to that because, you know, like I said, that we know the obvious, we know what's going on. But truly, I always say it's like having two sides of a coin. At any given moment, there's something really awful going on, and also simultaneously something really beautiful going on. And it's up to us to choose to, one, focus on that, but it's not possible even for us to make that leap to shift our focus to the beautiful things that are going on when we're not taking the time that we need to really truly love on ourselves the way that we've neglected to do so. So we've got a lot of pressures on us. You know, I'm a mom of 4 kids. You know, there's a lot of pressures on us society-wise that requires for us to do some things that are, I would say, next to impossible. We've got to do it all. We've got to work. We've got to pay bills, but we've got to inspire our kids to do things. And a lot of times we're just running on empty. And so a lot of what the work that I do focuses on really turning our attention and our focus back inward so that we can figure out, with all of the different roles that we've been playing in our lives, we've neglected ourselves to such an extent that we've depleted ourselves. So when times like this come about, where we're losing so many people and we're dealing with so many things that are heavy, yeah, I don't have to list it, like everybody knows. It makes it that much more difficult to deal with that stuff when we haven't really dealt with our own personal traumas and our own personal stressors and triggers and things. So what we're doing is we're asking a lot of ourselves to be able to cope with what is right now without having put our own oxygen mask on and dealing with some of our own personal things that we have to deal with. So it's possible to make it through this, grow from what we're experiencing, and come out 10 times stronger. It's possible for us to create a new normal through all of the adversity that we're experiencing right now. And sometimes you've got to lose it to find it. And that's kind of where we're at as a society, but also on a personal note. Sometimes you got to lose it to find it. That what we're seeing is what has been happening hasn't been working. And there's just a cry on a universal level for something new. And we have this beautiful opportunity to create that something new, but it's got to begin with us taking the time to really get to know who we are first and learning how self-love is the key really to moving forward and creating a new normal that is for all of us, that will benefit all of us and propel all of us forward.
So I've heard, let me first speak to Rhonda. Rhonda Bird is on and she says, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Rhonda. Thanks for listening in. There's a saying that says in order to get the right answers, you have to ask the right questions. So what are some questions or some things that, because you were saying a new normal and to reset and recalibrate, what are some questions that we could ask ourselves that would help us to find that place or to know exactly what the deficits are? Because some people, you know, say that, well, I don't even know where to begin. How can we start to get in touch with the things that we need to refuel or recalibrate?
Absolutely. Well, the first step is to want to. That's the first step. When you ask the questions, the answers are always right there and available to you, and they come to you in all kinds of different forms. But first, you have to be willing to ask, what is it that I need to do? So that's step one. Mm-hmm. Then you have to be open to receive, this is the concept. You've got to do something different. You've got to do something different than you've been doing before. And so again, I'm gonna go back to this thing. Ask yourself questions like, take it back to basic self-care. You need clarity to know how to cope in these difficult times and difficult moments. Ask yourself first and foremost, your body is not going to run at max capacity unless you're doing the basic self-care. And I say that, and so
You're fading.
basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Uh-huh.
I say basic stuff like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? These are like, I'm telling people, keep super simple, because there's no huge magic formula here. It's about basic things. One, are you taking care of yourself as well as you could so that you have the clarity to know how to deal with situations as they come? And two, are you pouring enough self-love on yourself in a healthy way on a daily basis so that you're getting the joy out of life that we are all, we should all be experiencing? So the kind of questions that you're asking is, what kind of things are you doing to pour self-love on yourself every day? Maybe for some people that's going to the gym. Maybe for some people that's going for a walk. But a lot of times the first thing that we sacrifice in the day is ourselves. If you're rushing off, if you've got a busy schedule and you're rushing off in the morning and you don't eat breakfast, when I say bringing it back to the basics, people are looking for way larger answers, but ignoring the little things. So the questions that we have to ask ourselves really have to do with the smaller things and the basics first, because you can't skip steps. So how do we begin? We begin with asking ourselves, are we doing everything that we should be doing to nourish our bodies, to love ourselves, so that we can have the space, the clarity of mind to be able to deal with the situations that we're handed day to day?
Right.
So basic questions is what I'm saying. We have to keep it simple, because we do tend to make things far more complicated, because that's how the human mind works.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't stress enough how, if we keep it simple, I promise that the steps become clearer and reveal themselves over time. We all have this beautiful inner guidance system.
So we basically have to take that first step.
Time.
Yeah, we have to take the first step then, huh? And you're saying the other steps will start to reveal themselves. Is that what I hear you saying?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. That's absolutely what I'm saying. You have to take the first steps, and you can't skip steps. So you don't want to try to figure out how you're going to get from A to B if you're not willing to refuel. You wouldn't get in your car and ask it to take you from point A to B on an empty tank. So the questions that we have to start asking ourselves when we're trying to figure out how to get through the things that we're trying to get through is, are we giving our body every chance that it deserves to serve us in the moments that we need it to? And we cannot skip steps. So yes, basic self-care and basic self-love. Are we bringing ourselves joy every day in the way that we should be? Those are the types of questions that we need to ask, because that's the thought, the mindset that we need to be in order to even receive what the next step is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, in terms of self-care, then even with all of the things we're going through, which would include depression, illness, family problems, anything else, if our body is not up to par, we haven't had enough sleep, we're not having enough water, we haven't been moving around, we're not eating properly, the body is not going to, because the body fuels the brain, and nothing's going to work right in terms of how we even deal with situations, right? If our body is not up to par. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And, so for me, it really is like, I understand that people who are right now, I know you're talking about the friend that you've lost recently. So many people, I myself included, have been affected either by death or just tragic circumstances surrounding this pandemic. And I can't stress enough how important it is that we remember it is bringing it back to the basics that help us get to that space where we need to be in order to move forward from all of this. And I think also just having a deeper understanding that there is something bigger going on here. So in order for us to really truly get that bird's eye view of how we can do our part in creating that new normal, it really does start with us learning how to love ourselves. Because imagine a world of people who all were loving on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that would eliminate half of the issues that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it does have to do with that lack of self-love and that insecurities, and that leads to so many other things. But when it comes to seeing clarity in dark times, it absolutely begins with us loving ourselves first.
And the Bible even says for us to love others as we love ourselves. And so
Correct.
it starts with self-love, and how we treat others
Absolutely.
oftentimes has to do with how we treat ourselves. Lastly, before we go, I'm going to ask you a question about grief then. With so many people grieving right now and so many people experiencing loss, how does that apply to legacy? Because one of my goals of the show has to do with continuing legacy and passing on life lessons. So yes, we're going to grieve the person who we've lost, but how do we honor their memory? How do we continue legacies and ensure that we're not stuck in a place of grief, but then that we continue to see and have that person with us through memories and good times and the things that they shared with us?
Yes. Well, you remind me of a quote about grief. I can't remember it exactly or said it, but about grief being such a beautiful measure of love. Anytime we grieve someone, it really does kind of give a physical manifestation of the love that we have for that person. And that's a beautiful thing. And so it really does just take a shift in our perspective, because grief is a very necessary part of life. It's a process that we all go through. We all lose someone at some point that's really close to us. And really, if we start looking at grief for what it really is, which is a true measure of the depth of love that we have for that person, then we're able to honor that person by allowing ourselves to grieve when we feel like we need to, with the understanding that grief is love manifested after that person is gone. So you embrace it. There's nothing wrong with, thinking about someone who has passed on as often as you can from a place of just pure positivity and having the memory of them and living in that memory. And, grief is a very important tool for us to grow, and so super symbolic of the love that exists for the people that we've lost. So I think grief is a beautiful thing when you are able to shift your perspective to that, because it really truly does measure, the harder we grieve, the harder we loved while they were alive. So be alive by honoring how you feel, but also continuing to, like I said, love yourself, because anybody who we love deeply, who we lost, we know would absolutely thrive knowing how well we're doing after their departure. So it's always important to keep pressing on, cry when you have to, but just recognize grief as just a symbol of the love that you have for that person, and honor them in that way.
That's so important. And thank you for that. I think we probably have about a minute left. And so I want to thank you so much for coming on with such valuable insight and valuable information. How, in closing, tell people how they can reach you if anyone wanted to follow you or get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So I do have a website. It's www.acasanlove.org. That's ACAAN love.org, all one word. And a CASIN actually is an acronym for myself and my children. So it actually is meaningful to me. I know a lot of people are like, what does that stand for?
Mhm.
And I can also, you can look me up. I'm Aisha Dodd on Facebook. Just check me out on Facebook or check me out on my website. You can read all about me and you can reach me that way.
Okay, so y'all follow her, and I'm sure this is the first of many times that we're going to have conversations, because I want to continue to bring inspirational people before the audience, and people who are going to help us do this thing called life and do it abundantly, as the word of God says, and to do it as a thriver and not just a survivor. And so we are going to continue to bring these great guests before you. So Aisha, are you willing to come back and talk to us?
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to. Yes.
Well, good. And so I think I'm out of time now. Um, okay, he's telling me something. I don't know what he's saying, but um, I have a question. Okay, I have a question. I'm sorry. That's what he was telling me. It says, what's your Facebook page again?
Oh, yes. Okay, you can find account on Facebook is just a CASIN LLC. You can look it up, ACASAN, on Facebook.
ACASAN. ACASAN.
Correct. My actual website, www.acasinlove, so ACLOVE.org.
Okay, and
Or
I
you
would
can just be my friend on Facebook.
your face, or I will type it in the comments so that when you come to the radio station page, you can look it up, and I will put it in the comments as well. And that way, anyone who wants to contact you or follow you, then they can follow you. I hear our music playing, basically, and it's saying somebody prayed for me, so I'm going to encourage all of us to continue to pray for each other, continue to lift your families up in prayer, and continue to just send up some good vibrations and good thoughts in terms of all the things that's going on now. Because even in spite of what's going on, we can thrive, we can survive, and we can come out better on the other side of this. And so until next week, I am going to say, be blessed, take care, and I love you all.
You've been listening to Rena Laster and Dorothy Norwood. Life, lessons, legacies, and legends. Join them every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. at 980 WDDO and 107.9 FM on your
The
dial.
views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.